Ms. Hines, we were talking the other day about how many people we know who have just passed away. And it's just happening. It's back to back to back. You can't even fully process one death or there's another. And if you are listening, SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers, we're going to be talking about physical death, but I believe you can also take these tools and tips to help with any form of grief, whether it be grief from a divorce, the loss of a pet, job transitions, careers. A lot of people lost their jobs because of the pandemic. And have not quite got footing on the next. So whatever area you may be grieving in, and we may be able to break this episode down really into two, because we want to cover a lot, because you all asked for this topic, and here we are.
Welcome to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, where we get VIP access into the lives of Black women, or as we like to call us here, our SistaNistas. We get to hear from some of our favorite SistaNistas as they share their worlds with us and create connections, exchange realities, ideas, and baby, we get to recognize and celebrate how powerful we really are and the kind of inspiration that proves we can be even greater. This is our world, where if you ain't a Black woman, you may want to be one, or definitely get to know one. It's a Black women's world, and we welcome our SistaNista lovers too. Welcome to our queendom. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and I'm your host, TracyMac. Come on in and relax, and sit with me for just a little while. Peace.
Well, hello, everybody. I am TracyMac, your professional peacemaker and host of Black Women's World Podcast. That's the BWWP, baby, and don't get it twisted. Listen, as promised, I have the honor of bringing yet another Black woman to the table. I told you I was going to bring Black women to the table who mattered. And this lady here, Miss Dr. Elder Coach Andrea Hines, she matters to me in so many ways. And you will see by the end of this show that we will be talking about grief. It's personal and it's complicated. And I want to talk so much about her, but I don't just want her to sit there. So I want to talk to her. Hey, Miss Hines.
Hey, Miss TracyMac. How are you, lady?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm well. I am well. Glad to be here too.
I am so honored and glad to have you. I know Miss Hines in so many different ways, but I am honored because we had to talk about it before we signed on. Both of us couldn't remember the exact year we met. She can blame it on certain things, and I really don't have anything to blame it on. But I am so glad. I met Miss Hines in 2015. Right. And when I met her, she just has this regalness about her. Anybody who knows her, you know, you have people who step in the room and can light it up. Then you have people who step in the room and their presence is a good heavy. That's this lady right here. That's Miss Hines. I mean, just this royal, this authentic class is just all over her.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful. How did we meet, Miss Hines? How did we meet?
I had gotten to a place where, and I don't know whether you've ever had this happen, where you are simply talking to people and they are listening to you in a way that you didn't think they were listening to you. And then they're acting on things that you say and you're like, what? No, I didn't tell you to do that. I didn't tell you to say that. And I had some friends who were going through, a couple had been through your certification class. And I thought, I want to learn more about life coaching. I want to know what that's about. If I'm going to be talking to people, then I want to be saying things that will help and not harm. And you were I happened to call this person and they said, oh, Tracy's doing this open house where she's going to tell people what it's like to be a life coach and all these things about coaching. I said, okay, Give me the info. I'm signing up. I'm going to meet this lady today. So you had your event, and I went, and I was just amazed at all of the things that you were teaching and sharing, and the importance of how you do what you do. And I thought, I need to do this. I need to talk to this woman. So I went up afterwards. We had a conversation. We set an appointment, and let me tell your listeners, when you set an appointment with this SistaNista right here, you better be ready. You had better be ready. She is no joke. And I'm telling you, Tracy, you took me down a path, rapid fire. And I got off that phone and thought, what just happened?
Miss Hines, you ain't scared of people. Don't scare the people, Miss Hines.
What happened to my life? This woman just turned my life upside down. And you are still turning lives upside down. And I tell you what, this is what is so needed. We need authenticity. We need truth. We need to be able to be in a safe place where we know that the individual is not there to cause us any harm. They really are there to help and give us a platform and an opportunity to say some things that we may never get to say.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you for that. I appreciate you for that meeting. And needless to say, I signed up. One of the best things I ever did. And I am just so grateful for that. So grateful.
Oh God. You let me bring my head down. You just spoke up. Because meeting you was different for me. And we're going to get to the topic. Grief, it's personal and it's complicated, but I need you to know the caliber of person coming to you, because everything we do is spiritual. Whether you believe it or not, doesn't matter. It's just the fact it is. And when I met Miss Hines, my question to her is, you have done so much already. I mean, she was an IBMer like no other. Not just working the job, but the things she did and traveling around the world. She's talented. She's a poet. She can sing. Like I said, she's an elder. She's a doctor. She's an author. She has her own radio show. She has her own show, When Life Speaks, and her tagline is When Life Speaks, Speak Life. And let me tell you, I listen to it when she comes on live at 8 a.m., 8 p.m. I try to get on.
Yes, you do.
She's always talking about her, like I said, her presence just makes you feel comfortable that you're in the presence of someone who cares. As a coach, she's a consummate listener. She came through the program with flying colors. I mean, she was there. She did her homework. She did her hard work. And in the process of the coaching, it's a trifecta. You're working on yourself, you're working on your business, so you can work for your clients. You know, and I was so honored that you, the caliber woman you are, even your, being an elder at the river, your association with Cheryl Brady, the times that you were with her. And I was thinking to myself, this lady's going to come to me for coaching. She's already doing so many wonderful things. She's already done so much. So you know what? I better show up for her, as authentic as I can. So I want to thank you publicly again for the opportunity for you to think enough of me and what I offer to not only invest in yourself, but to come out you have just done everything. You've gone beyond anything I could have certified and trained you on. I mean, you've just done it. And Ms. Hines, you're a seasoned woman, and I know you're going to be talking about that too. Tell the people what you're going to be talking about on your upcoming show about being seasoned.
Yes, we have. I have a show coming on tonight. As a matter of fact, this is a Thursday evening at 7 p.m. and it is my When Life Speaks program. And I have another senior with me. You can say senior, you can say seasoned, you can say any of those things that you want to say. But we're going to be talking about things that are important to us. And we're going to be talking about it from a perspective that if you live long enough, they're going to be important to you too. So there's some things that you can prepare for, And there's some things you simply need to understand that are just part of the aging process. And I do remember, Tracy, I laugh about it now, but before I turned 50, I received a notification from AARP, and I was offended. I thought, how dare these people send me something
Oh my God.
about being a senior citizen. I mean, I had an attitude about that thing until I got my card and started looking at my discounts. And I was like, everywhere I'm going, there's something for seniors. Do you have something? Is there a discount here? You make your list of Tuesday, I can go over here because it's 10% off over there. These things get to be really, really important,
Yeah.
So,
You know what? You were sitting up there offended, and I was like, "Where's my AARP card?" I'm one of them kind. I need a discount. Shoot, I'm going to ask for a military discount or AARP discount.
That's right.
Everywhere.
I know. And I tell you, once I got into the hang of it, I was like, this is a good thing right here. I'm liking this. This is not bad at all.
Look at us. Look, now
I enjoy my status.
Yes. Look at us with our AARP selves.
Moving and shaking, lady. Moving and shaking. That's
don't hate. But Ms. Hines, you just mentioned, and I'm going to try to get on because I love hearing you and the guests you bring on, add so much value to the conversation because it's real. Those things that happen to us are just part of life. And one thing you mentioned that the stages of life that some things we can't control. Right. And one of those things, inconsistent with the topic today, is death and grieving. Mm-hmm. And, grief, it's personal. It is complicated.
Yes, ma'am.
It's real. And we're going to talk about it from so many different perspectives. But Ms. Hines being ordained in ministry, as well as a coach, as well as life experience, as well as an author and a poet. And oh my God, she does so much. It's just really hard for me to contain it. But between the two of us, and the disclaimer is that I said on the promo for this particular episode is that neither one of us are grief counselors. We're not certified in grief counseling, nor we're licensed in grief counseling. But between the school of life, between our individual degrees, our ordinations, our calling, the years that we've dealing with people, 20 years in coaching, I know that even whether you're going through grief counseling now or have gone through it, we're going to be offering some tools and tips to help you live with grief because it's real. Ms. Hines, we were talking the other day about how many people we know who have just passed away, and it's just happening. It's back to back to back. You can't even fully process one death or there's another. And if you are listening, SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers, we're going to be talking about physical death, but I believe you can also take these tools and tips to help with any form of grief, whether it be grief from a divorce, the loss of a pet, job transitions, careers. A lot of people lost their jobs because of the pandemic and have not quite got footing on the next. So whatever area you may be grieving in, and we may be able to break this episode down really into two, because we want to cover a lot because you all asked for this topic and here we are. So Ms. Hines, when we were talking about loved ones that we've lost, and then we were talking about recently people who have died, back to back to back. And I shared with you earlier about the lady I read about CNN. She's the pro-vaxxer who lives in Palm Beach County, Florida. She lost 6 relatives within 3 days.
Unbelievable.
And I'll put the link to that article in the show notes. Ms. Hines, what do you feel is not just going on, but before we get into the tips, just talk about that for just a minute.
Well, I know, first of all, when you're talking about grief, we don't always equate grief with loss, if you know what I mean. When we talk about grief, most of the time we are talking about death. the death of a loved one, the death of, you know, a coworker, a friend, or someone close to us. But we grieve over loss.
Yeah.
Any kind of loss.
Yeah.
You know, like you were saying, it could be the loss of a job, could be the loss of a pet, could be the loss of a relationship. But all of those things will take us into the grieving process. And we have to know, it's interesting when you were saying that it's personal and it's complicated. We are in a season right now where so many people are dying, and age has absolutely nothing to do with it. With this onslaught of COVID-19 and everything that accompanies it, the rate at which people are dying, the way that people are being cared for, the way that people are being treated, we have not been this way before. Yeah. And when people make this statement and say, you know, I just want to get back to normal, there is no back to normal. We will never be the same. Yeah. When we get to the other side, because we will come through this. We will come through this. I do believe that with my whole heart. But there is still a journey. There is still a process that we all will have to go through. Mm-hmm. And when all of this first started happening, I almost felt like, and I'm just going to talk about me and be transparent in where I was. I almost felt like I was in a bubble, because I was not losing people at that rate. I wasn't losing people who were close to me. But if you live long enough, that's something my dad used to tell me all the time. I'd say, Daddy, why is this? Why is that? Why are these things happening? And he would smile and look at me and say, just live long enough, baby. Just live long enough. And that is what I'm seeing and sensing and feeling in this season. Things have changed. Yes. We don't communicate the same way. Yes. We don't look to get our messaging and messages the same way. Yes. Social media has taken the element of privacy that we have needed in some cases and shared it in a way that is not timely, that is not conducive to our health, that is not conducive to our well-being. And it just is. Yes, it just
You're so right. You're so right, especially when it comes to social media. When we hear about the loss of a loved one, it's on social media and the comments are, you know, my sincere condolences. And most of us really mean that. My prayers, you know, those things. And those things are good, but it's just, it's a font and an emoji. And I know that even in the past 3 years, I have lost 5 friends, close friends. Like I said, I ain't talking about nobody I met last year. I'm talking about people I've known since the 80s. Mm-hmm. And they were around, some of them were around my age. And it was just boom, boom. It was, you know, it just, and so last year, this time, like you said, I was in the bubble as far as the COVID deaths, where I began to get calls to either do the eulogy or read the scripture or have or something. To a total of 16 different Zoom memorials. Because remember, it was a time where there was you couldn't go to any funerals or nor the funeral home, no visitation, none of that. And I had to put a stop to it because I was experiencing grief fatigue.
Right.
And it was hard because it was hard to see people, like you said, the going back to normal. No, it was hard to see people grieve their loved ones on a screen. And Miss Hines, the toughest thing was to know a few elderly people who lost their spouses, and because of the lockdown, they weren't even able to have a repast.
No.
And so they had to go home alone. You know, and for years, I mean, in tradition, we joke, you know, you take food over to the family, you know, everybody gonna bring chicken and cake, you know. And even in that, you leave the cemetery, and used to be you can go to the repast and at least have some form of a hug or some good food or people laughing. You know, especially Black folks, this is a Black person's perspective, but a repast, somebody gonna cut the food somewhere. You're gonna have some type of happy memory of the person.
Some relief. some relief.
Yeah, and even in the thing you mentioned, social media, which triggered into me to bring it up. We're not even able in some cases to verbalize the loss
Right.
of a loved one because somebody's typing it on social media. We type it right back. Used to be we got a phone call and we were at least able to say, hey, oh, I remember him, or oh my God, to at least have that verbal release to some degree. It may not have dealt with the grief, but just because those stages of death, the shock. Well, we're getting the shock on social media.
Right. Right.
We're getting
and where do we take that?
Yeah, a lot of us are swallowing it. We're taking it right here. It's sitting right here.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes right here, and so the ways we grieve are different. You and I we talked about the some people that say it's 7, but the 5 stages of grief, we couldn't remember what they were, but you live them.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. That is true. That's true. And I know when I lost a cousin recently, and it really drove all of this home for me, because he and I had been talking probably 2-3 times a week, because he like a lot of us.
Us Black
senior
folks. Seniors. Okay, seniors.
When it comes to all things technology related, we got an issue. And so he was having difficulty getting onto my programs, and he would call and say, okay, what am I supposed to tap? What am I supposed to look at? So we had really been talking a lot over the last couple of months. And he had tried to get on the program on Thursday, and I said, look, if you can't make it Thursday, I'll call you Friday. Without fail, I'm going to call you Friday morning and, we'll talk you through, and we'll try this again. Well, I got off of my 8 at 8 program on Friday morning. Okay. And as I was closing it out, it popped up in my feed and said, rest in peace.
Oh, no.
And I thought, this can't be happening. No. This has got to be something wrong. And it was in that story feed that comes through. So I tried to go back, and it wasn't there. And I thought, okay, I must be wrong. But then I went to Facebook, and I went to his page, and there it was. And there it was. And that thing just really turned me around. And I thought, what is happening? How are we going to deal with death this way? This way. Yeah. And it was sudden. He was older. So, you can go through that whole thing however you want to, however you choose to. But a lot of times there is the situation where someone has been battling. Yeah. They've been battling illness. They've been battling disease. And that it's imminent. You can finish that sentence. You can finish that sentence. Yeah. Well, my next blow was the death of someone that I knew was battling. She was battling metastatic breast cancer. Wonderful lady. She was one of my program hosts. I loved her dearly, but I knew that things were going downhill. It was imminent. And I was ready. If you can ever be ready, I was ready. Okay. So got news of her death, got news of her service, and had been asked to read something there. I decided to do that. I thought, okay, I can do this. It's not going to be bad. But the morning of her funeral, I received another phone call very early in the morning to let me know that someone else had died in a tragic car accident that morning. So we're burying someone.
My Lord.
Long illness, and then we have a sudden death the same day. And I was all over the place because I had an assignment here, but I've got to keep myself together over here.
Yeah.
So when things are happening and deaths are happening, and you made the statement about grief fatigue.
Yes.
I thought, oh, okay, I had not heard that term, but I certainly get it. Yes. Because you almost get to a point you don't want to answer the phone. You don't want to look at social media. You don't want to hear from it because you are anxious about what's going to be on the other end of that, and how am I going to handle what's on the other end of that.
Ms. Hines, that is so true. So true. And I thank you for sharing about the lives of your cousin and your friends who passed away. And I really appreciate that, because I think that is one of the new ways we're going to have to deal with this. It's personal and complicated thing called grief. Talking about them. I know that when in the subject matter of grief fatigue stemmed for me out of caregiver fatigue. We were coaching companies with that. And then when all these deaths happened, I began to offer grief fatigue, especially for those that are either caregivers still, or even those who since COVID have lost loved ones and friends and coworkers. And, it's just happening. It's just everywhere. And so what I know and believe is, I know, and I think I said in the promo that companies offer different benefits, hopefully different companies, life insurance, insurance of hospital insurance, medical insurance, all that. But some companies on the cutting edge are offering things to their employees, like grief counseling and grief coaching, or like what I do. And one thing that I have seen helps, especially when you're talking about something, grieving a person, or the last memory you have of a person is a Zoom. Even though I'm grateful for Zoom, we use it every day, but that's the last way. Even if it's recorded, we didn't touch, we didn't talk. It's that human connection to touch and feel isn't there. But when you were saying about hearing about one person and the next person, we're hearing this all the time, and we don't want to get used to it, but we have to figure out ways to live with it, because, ladies and gentlemen, grief will always be here. It will always be here. And I said on the promo, and I say again, I ain't trying to be laughing and joking at the time, but sometimes you got to use laughter as a medicine. I was telling my girlfriend, sometimes grief hits me like a hot flash. It comes out of nowhere.
Right. That's true. I mean, that is
damage.
Really true.
And it's like, oh, it's so disrespectful. I wasn't ready for you. A smell, a touch.
Stay tuned for more of the BWWP. This episode of Black Women's World Podcast is being brought to you in part by TracyMac Solutions for Life Institute Coaching and Training Services. If you're experiencing relationship challenges, be it personal or professional, leadership frustration, conflict fatigue, a need for change or a better sense of direction, or maybe transition uncertainty, Solutions for Life Institute is where self-discovery and peace of mind merge and thrive, creating strategic solutions. Self-discovery is the privilege of knowing who you are here to be and what you are here to do. By doing so, you get to enjoy maxing out your best life, navigate easier through challenging situations, and ultimately increasing your bottom line. Which is why we are sure that self-discovery is one of the best forms of self-care ever. On purpose, through mission, with passion and compassion. To find out more or schedule a consultation, go to solutionsforlifeinstitute.com. You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast. Let's continue the conversation.
But I want to say that when I was going through my grief fatigue last year with those 16 different virtual memorial service participating in, I was like, oh my God. And back then the hopes were that COVID was going to be over with by this time, a year ago. And so just the fatigue of COVID, oh my God, are we going to ever get over it? Regardless, I don't care what you believe about it, it's here. So I'm like, how are we going to, oh my God. So I found an article, and I'm not going to read the article, but it was on NPR. NPR has an area on their website called Life Kit, and it was May 14, 2020. The author is Stephanie O'Neill. So I want to give Stephanie her props. This is not TracyMac. but I just want to share some of the things. And Ms. Hines, we can kind of roll. I'm gonna name all 5, and then we can kind of roll within them to the degree the conversation goes. And like I said, this is part 1. We'll probably have a part 2 to this. But one thing Stephanie talked about in the NPR article, as far as grief, first of all, you got to be with it. That's number 1. Number 2, understand it is a lifelong journey. Grief, and number 3, grief needs an expression. Number 4, you will ping pong between loss and restoration. And we're going to talk about that. And then grief has the ability to break you down, but it also has the ability to break you wide open. And
that's
so
good.
As we go through this, these are some of the things that the tools and tips. And just like anything else, I pulled that up on the internet and it helped me. But I needed somebody to walk with me through those things. So we got information everywhere. Like I said, we got information overload, but implementation starvation. Who can walk you through these feelings? Who can help you through all of this? And that's what I hope this podcast offers, that whether you get grief counseling or grief coaching or not, maybe the legs of that can extend to that. Maybe when you're at home by yourself in the middle of the night, you can listen to this podcast and hear Ms. Hines and I give you some tools and tips, even knowing the fact that there's a scripture that says Jesus was touched with the feelings of our infirmities. We all know what it feels like to lose someone, but grief is so personal, we handle it very differently. So that, the emotions, the guilt, the anger, physical pain some people experience, fear, because of especially somebody who's lost a breadwinner or someone who's lost a parent, a child or a teenager, the fear that can set in. And then as a lot of people are experiencing a secondhand grief, the triggers, you hear about someone else losing their parent or a friend, and all of a sudden the emotions from who you lost begin to come up. So Ms. Hines, when Stephanie talks about in the article, be with it when it comes to grief and living with it, how do you recommend somebody be with grief?
Well, I think that there's a couple of parts to that I thought about. I want to go back though and make a point about something that you said.
Absolutely.
You were talking about corporations who are calling you in and trying to find out, what they can do to help their employees through this process. I was very happy to know the Sunday after this Saturday of death and notification and burial and all of that, when I went to church, we did not have service. We are blessed to have clinicians in the house. So instead of having service, we had a panel discussion about grief. Because both of these people were faithful to the ministry. Both of these people were relatively well known within the ministry. So because they were so sudden and so close, it wasn't like a Monday and then we'll go to church that Sunday, next Sunday. This was Saturday and the next day. So we had people on site. We do recognize that, that people would need help, that they may not have anywhere to go. And that was provided for them. So I think a lot of times it is helpful when the house of God is stepping up and stepping in to say, we've got to take this another step. We're not just send you somewhere to know what these 5 stages are. We want to really make sure that you are part of that B process, if you will. The other side of that is that in our realization and recognition of what all of this is, there are 2 sides to this. We spend a lot of time talking about the stages of grief. But what we don't spend a lot of time on, I don't think, that we spend enough time on is how do you handle the person that is grieving?
Exactly.
Because I don't know what to do with you. I don't know how to help you. I don't know what to say to you. And I asked a friend of mine, I said, I need you to help me help you grieve. Because I don't know what you need. Today may be the day that you want to be by yourself.
Yes.
And I come by and say, no, girl, you got to get up out this bed because we
Yes.
got to go. You got to get some egg. You got to go out.
Wrong.
Wrong thing. I mean, all the way around the wrong thing. Yeah. And yet, if you step back, then you find the note that says, nobody cares about what I'm going through. Nobody's called me. Yeah. Nobody has said anything with me. And you're caught. You're like, how do I help you through this process that I know you're going through? I know that you're going to have to do this. And I know that you probably don't want to do it alone. Yes. But I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to help you.
And then they don't know sometimes what they need.
Right.
Because of not having gone through this. I like when you said we can talk about the stages of grief, whether they be 7 or 5. I could pull them up. Right. I mean, I know shock, denial, acceptance, bargaining. I know some of them right off the top of my head. But the thing of it is, I can tell you the stages all day long, but it don't mean nothing. I'm just calling words. But when you are by yourself or you're in a crowded room and these things, right. You don't give a flying flip if it's a stage or not. You might not even understand. Right. And when you just said, as far as not knowing how, I think it goes back to when we say that number one, based on the article Stephanie wrote, NPR, and I'll put that link in the show notes as well. As far as being with it, I think we have to admit sometimes we don't know how to be with it. When I was doing the virtual things, and even when I've done eulogies or being part of the funeral program for people, their homegoing service, sometimes even a preacher don't know what to say. And you being in ministry and myself, sometimes the preacher just need to shut up. I'm just going to keep it real because you don't know what to say. And I think I shared with you one of the opportunities I had to eulogize a person. The preacher said clicheically, they're in a better place. Well, because I knew the family and I knew he meant well and I didn't want to embarrass him or the family. And I said, I know we mean well when we say they're in a better place, but I think sometimes the best place for this man would have been right here beside his wife. We don't feel they're in a better place at that time. It's even my friends
that's right.
Look, it's like, and then the anger, because I'm like, if they're in a better place, why didn't take me with them? I ain't ready to go now, but so it's that whole cycle of being there. And I think to maybe provide a suggested possibility is showing up. Just show up to be. And if they don't want to talk, they don't want to talk.
They don't have to
do that. But I think just showing up, whether showing up looks like a text, how are you today? Because we still being socially distant physically distant in some cases, whether it be showing up with their favorite food. That's why relationships are so important. You kind of know what they like. The how you have meal trains for people. Well, maybe the meal train stopped running about a week after the funeral. And then, as my dad used to say, everybody shows up the day of and a week after, but who's showing up for you 2 years from now?
Yes, that's so true.
Relationships are so important because that being with it, don't be with it by yourself. If I could, piggyback on Stephanie's article, if you're going to be with it, don't be with it by yourself because you don't have to.
And I'm thinking too, just with some of the things that you said, and you mentioned the word relationship, I think is so important one of the things that happens with me, when someone dies, it just puts me in a space to examine how I'm living. How I'm living. I was comforted by the fact that I had that opportunity to have all those conversations with my cousin.
Yes.
Prior to his passing.
Yes.
So, and I call it, I dub it the Meant To Club. I turned in my car.
You call it the what?
The Meant To Club. I meant to call you. I meant to send you a text. I meant to write you a note. Girl, you know I meant to be there the other day. You know, I meant to.
I'm writing it down.
Turn in your card. Let that card expire to the Meant to Club. Get away from it. Get out of it. Because sometimes when you're talking about grief and things like that, sometimes what we have to hold on to that gets us through those places is the memories.
Yes. That's
and those memories cannot be clouded with regret.
Yes. And I think that goes to one of the stages or one of the emotions of grief, that guilt. Sometimes we feel guilty because we were in the Meant to Club and we procrastinated and put it off and put it off, put it off. So yes, we'll miss the person, but then we've got the other layer of that with I should have, could have, didn't. You know, and so it's important, even if we were angry with the person, these are the kind of things we got to keep it real. You know, we held something against the person. We didn't accept their apology or we didn't apologize. We got to be with that too. We got to own it. I don't think you own it to the point where you feel guilty, but own it to the point where you get relief and you're able to release that thing. And that's why relationships are important, because that person is gone. They can't hear it anymore, but maybe another friend, maybe that grief counselor, maybe that grief coach, maybe listen to this podcast where you can say, you know, I really feel bad for how our relationship was before they passed. I have those situations too, you know, but being able to say it means a lot to someone. And that goes to kind of like number 2, when you were talking about the being with it, and that we said it earlier, this is a lifelong journey. Grief, it's personal and it's complicated. And if I could add a third, it is lifelong. It is not something you get over, baby. It is not something you go to the counselor, you read a book, you read an article, done deal. We got it. No, you're going to be with this thing until
you handle it differently.
So
you
what
just handle it differently.
Yeah, what do you think about that lifelong?
Because there is not a day that now I have lost my sister. It was just 2 of us. My sister, my mom, my dad, they're all gone. But there is not a day that I don't think about my father, especially because he and I were so close. But I don't go over in a corner and cry about it every day, but I do think about him every day. Yeah. And there's some things that I don't do anymore, and I have had to make it okay not to do them anymore. Okay. We were both football fans. Okay. When I moved to North Carolina and he was still in DC, the big thing was Monday Night Football. Okay. And he would call every Monday night, who you like? That was his thing. Who you like? Aww. Who you like? I'd pick my team, he'd pick his team. And I said, Dad, we going to bet on the game? He said, yeah, let's bet on the game. I said, what are we going to bet? He said, let's bet $1. Like, big money, big money, big money. We gonna break the bank on this one, you know. But those are things that I remember. Those are things that make me smile. But as long as I'm here and there are Mondays in the week, that's gonna be with me. Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm not gonna, you know, that's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. But like I said, you learn to maneuver differently. You learn to handle it differently. And you have to condition yourself as to which part of this am I going to be able to keep that will put me here and not send me there. That's rich. That is rich, Miss Hines. That is rich. Filtering which part of this am I going to keep? That is rich. That is rich. And that's rich. That's hit down in the shana now right there. That really is, because and not miraculously, but as Miss Hines would do it, that goes right into number 3. Needs an expression. Now, is that expression going to be positive or negative? Because it's a choice.
And I know that when my friends and relatives who have passed away, I lost both my grandparents while I was in Okinawa, Japan. And my grandmother, who was dealing with dementia, she had it pretty bad before I left, before I even went to Okinawa. She had moments of knowing who I was and then not. She, go off to another place. And, my grandma was trying to push up on my husband. And I'm like, ho, you're taking it too far, But one thing she said, she looked me in my eyes, sitting on her front porch, and she said, Tracy, when I die, don't you come across that water for no dead bodies.
Wow.
And it's still chilling to me because she had just called my little girl a little boy. She had just said that the man across the street was my brother and it wasn't. And then she comes into this moment of complete sanity, calls me by my name, looks me in my eyes, knew that I was going to Japan, and said, don't you come across that water for no dead bodies. And I was like, oh my God. So when she passed, I didn't. And I know people took it one way or another, but we had our time, we had our moments, and I obeyed her instruction. And even with that, when I want to remember her, my family is very musical. And she and my grandfather could, tinkle on the piano. They always had an organ and music playing somewhere in the house. And so I always think about those old songs from the 40s and 50s. She had hymn books, some of the hymns she used to play. I think about her and all of my friends, especially my close friends who have passed. My expression, based on number 3 from Stephanie's article, is music. God has blessed me with a way to attach a song to each one of their lives. And every time I hear it, I think of them. My friend Cornell, he was a consummate musician. He played for anybody big time, gospel, R&B with the BWWP and Shaka Khan, Mary J. Blige, Keisha Cole. He played for them all. And he had his own music that he did. And so when he passed, it was a shock. I had just seen him months before. And it was so relieving that now I think he has 4 projects total, including a holiday one. Whenever it comes on my playlist, I say, what's up, Cornell? I just say it out loud. Our mutual friend, Guy, he's a coach who I certified, but Guy was my friend. He was my buddy. He and me and Miss Hines and some other ones, we had an alliance, but he and Miss Hines, they was rocking to the wheels fall off. You know what I'm saying? And Guy would always be like, what you need. And so he was into fitness and health and this, that, and the other. And so the song Kirk Franklin, Before I Die, that's me and Guy's song, That expression for me happens through music. And like you said, so that's one I keep. You know what I'm saying? So what are some of the ones, and you don't have to relate it to your father, but what are some of the expressions you think would be helpful for us not to keep?
Ooh, I think probably that last thing. And I'm talking about the last thing that falls into the triplets category. The woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Gotcha.
That's something that we gotta let go of. And unfortunately, that's part of any relationship in particular. That there are always those things that we will step back from. And like the Mentus, that I would have done this if this hadn't happened.
Yes,
I should have done this if that hadn't happened. I could have done this if I wasn't doing this. And we play those games with ourselves when the reality of it is, and I think it is a reality, that whatever you did because you thought that was the right thing to do at the time. It's always like people say, well, what would you have told your 17-year-old self? Well, if I go back to when I was 17, I'd probably tell myself the same thing because I didn't have the good sense I have now. So, you can't always make it work that way. You know what I'm saying? You can't always make it work that way. But you have to, there are just times that you have to make up your mind how you handle life so that you can handle death better. You know what I'm saying?
Preach, preacher.
You know what I'm saying? If I am a person who, there's a person that I have on my mind right now that I need to call. I need to call them. And I cannot let this day go by and not do that. I have to do that. There are people that come to your mind all the time. And you think, gee, I wonder how they're doing. Yeah. But you don't wonder enough to pick the phone up. You don't wonder enough to make the text. You don't wonder enough. And then you get a letter like I got yesterday that said, sorry to inform you of the unexpected passing of, you know. Yeah. Now, there are a lot of things I could do with that. You know, I could feel guilty that I hadn't called before now. I could be angry with the people who should have told me. Why didn't they tell me? Why didn't they call me? Why didn't somebody speak up? I can take all of those kinds of things, all of those 5 things, all of those 7 things, and bundle them up in a ball and make a decision, make a choice of where I'm going to put it, how long I'm going to sit on it, what I'm going to do to change the narrative the next time. Those are choices that I can make with what this situation is right now. I can do that for myself. Yes. So I don't want to be caught off guard. So what am I going to do so that I'm not caught off guard? You know, whose charge am I going to lay this to? Whose fault am I going to make this? I've got to know me enough. It is like, I think one of the most brilliant things that ever came out was the love languages. Yes. Because I discovered some things in those love languages that I wanted to write a note to people. Tell you what the love language is for this, you know. Yes. You know what? It's funny you should say that. We need to know. We need to know for ourselves. This is going to work for me. This is not going to work for me. Settle on it. Be confident about it. Share it with who you need to share it to. Live your life and keep it moving. We spend so much time trying to get other people to understand things about us that we don't even understand. And you know what, Miss Hines, that is so true and so real. We are talking to doctor, elder, coach, author, poet, creative person, Andrea Hines, about grief. It's personal and it's complicated. We are going to have to make a part 2. I know we will, because I ain't tired of talking about it. And I know y'all ain't tired of listening, because you asked for this topic and we're bringing it to you, and you're not hearing it nowhere else like you're hearing it right now. The tips and tools that you're getting from these 2 Black women are here to help your life authentically, hopefully for the long haul, because like we've been saying, you're going to live with grief, and we're trying to give you tips and tools on how we all can live with grief. So I'm going to go ahead and segue out of part 1. I thank you all for listening to the Black Women's World podcast, as we've been talking to Miss Andrea Hines. I call her Miss Hines. I don't care what nobody else calls her. I call her Miss Hines because it encompasses all those things she is to me, and the gift she is to the world. So I thank you all for listening to the BWWP. Come back next week or whenever the part 2 airs, and you will get the other 3 tools and tips on how we deal with this thing called grief, because grief, it's personal and it's complicated. Thank you, Ms. Hines. We're ready for part 2. Thank you, Ms. TracyMac. Thank you for having me. Okay, much love and peace.
You've been listening to Black Women's World Podcast, the BWWP, brought to you in part by TracyMac Solutions for Life Institute, coaching and training services. No doubt you have enjoyed being in our world, and it doesn't have to stop here. Head on over to blackwomensworld.com. This is my personal invitation to you to stay connected with me on social media and more. I'd love to see you there. And I'm so grateful you came to be with me here. Invite someone else to join you in our queendom next time so they can feel the vibe of our tribe of SistaNistas and SistaNista lovers too. Remember to be kind, be authentic, be generous, be excellent, be grateful, and while you're at it, go ahead and be extraordinary, because that's just what SistaNistas do, on purpose through mission with passion and compassion. It's a Black woman's world, baby, and you, my SistaNista, are proof. I'm your self-discovery companion, your professional peacemaker, and your host, TracyMac. Wherever you are in the world, may you love and be loved by somebody. Peace.